Hey again, everybody. Connor Onion with you for another Saluki Standards Podcast. As always, brought to you by McAllister's Deli in Carbondale. They're over there on East Main Street in town. McAllister's Deli in Carbondale, some of the best sweet tea in the Midwest. Well, one of the most popular Saluki alums is our guest today, Jim Hart, former Saluki quarterback. He quarterbacked the Salukis in the mid-'60s, and big part of the reason he became one of the most popular Saluki alums was what he did after his Saluki career. 19 years in the NFL. Of course, many know him for his time with the St. Louis Cardinals. 35,000 passing yards, thereabout, in his NFL career. And he just kept killing it after his NFL career. He stayed in the NFL and did some broadcasting work after he retired, called the 1985 Super Bowl for the Bears on WGN Radio. And, of course, came back to SIU. He was the athletic director from 1989 to 1999 and hired some guy named Bruce Weber as the men's basketball coach. We'll get into all that. It's a pretty wide-ranging conversation. Jim has tons of great stories about his time in Carbondale and beyond. And we started with the beginning for him. He's an Illinois native. Grew up in Evanston, up on the north side of Chicago.
Memory fades a little bit, but thank goodness for some pictures that we're going through at this time to look at how things were back then. I didn't know any different, and so things were okay. My father had diabetes and went blind. I only knew him as a blind person, and so it was. That was a tough time. I was very young, like 5 years old or so, and so memories are. The one memory I have is doing something, probably saying something to him when he was tending to me as my mother worked, and I guess I smarted off, and he came after me, and I thought, well, I'll hide under the bed. He can't find me. Yeah, he did, and I paid for it. So, but that's one of the few memories I have of him back then, and so it was. And as I grew, my mom remarried, and we moved out to further in the suburbs of Chicago, Morton Grove, and so. But my stepdad was really responsible for me getting into athletics. I mean, I had some talent, raw talent, however you can say that at 10 years old or whatever. But I could throw a ball and hit a ball and stuff like that. And he kind of pushed me into participating more than I probably wanted to. I was a little bit shy, but he got me going, and he coached some baseball teams that I was on and stuff like that. So it was those were nice memories of that era, and I don't know what else I can say that. But he's the one who helped me, and so I was so proud that I could do the things that I did and accomplish some things before he died prematurely at age 57. So that's kind of how it all got started. I was like I say, I was able to throw a ball and hit a ball. Never was very fleet of foot, but I guess that would only stop me today. It didn't stop me back then.
Yeah, no. You played some basketball, and you mentioned baseball too, but why was it football that ultimately went out for you?
Well, I wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to play professional baseball, and my baseball coach thought I had a good opportunity. But when things developed in high school, we had a real successful senior year at Niles West, and we caught the interest of some colleges and things. And people ask, why did I choose Southern Illinois over Arizona, Illinois, Northwestern, whatever, places that expressed an interest but didn't follow through. But I wanted to play someplace where I knew I could play, that I wouldn't get lost as a number someplace, like Illinois or Northwestern or Notre Dame, they'd had 6 or 8 quarterbacks coming in every year, and so you really had to shine. And I didn't have the confidence in my own ability at that time to think that I could withstand all that. So I wanted to, and I also wanted to play closer to home, that my parents could watch me play every once in a while. They did drive down to Southern and watch a few games every year, but it was a tough drive for people, and so they only saw a few games every year. But that was neat that they could see me play every once in a while, and the fact that I thought I could handle the pressure. It wasn't Big Ten, it wasn't Division I football at that time. So I was really I just wanted to go someplace where I knew I could play, and that worked out. I think we had only 3 quarterbacks my freshman year there, and so all of us got a chance to play. And shoot, we only played 4 games back then as freshmen. You weren't eligible to play on the varsity anyway, so different times for sure. And
Yeah, I'm curious what the recruiting was like back then. You've seen, and I'm sure read, some of the crazy things people are doing to lure kids in that are maybe in middle school or early in high school now. What was recruitment like for you in the early 60s?
Well, it was all done by letter. I didn't meet the coach, Carmen Picone, until I made a visit down there in the summer of before my freshman year, and that's the first time I'd met the coach, and that's I guess when I signed to play there, and scholarships were nothing to write home about. You got room and board and books, and that was it. So I was, but I didn't know anything else. So it wasn't like today when you look at the paper and you see all these guys signing for this and for that. And I think Walt Frazier was the only one who received a true NCAA scholarship back then, and he was a couple of years behind me, where he got money plus room, board, books. So, but we didn't know any different, so that was fine. And I had lifelong friends in playing the sport of football there, and still keep in touch. So I wouldn't trade it for anything. I don't know that well, certainly not today. I wouldn't make it in the NFL, let alone college. So it was just because of physically, I couldn't run as fast as other guys, and in fact, the senior to be quarterback was Dave Harris from Christopher, Illinois, and he was going to be the quarterback, and but I guess I threw the ball better than him. I don't know. I never did. You don't ask questions like that. You just take what they give you, and so that was my sophomore year, and then Dave was gone after that, and so then it was just a couple of us, 3 of us, I guess, sharing time in junior and senior year. So I didn't know any better, and I was happy, and I was able to do the schoolwork and keep up with that, and so if you want me to keep going on that, I certainly will. Carmen Picone was our coach freshman, sophomore year, and then Carmen left, and then Don Schroyer became the head coach, and he had been an assistant coach with Wally Lem with the St. Louis football Cardinals in the early 60s, and so he was leaving. That they were they had a new coach then, Charlie Winter, and so the draft was held, I think, between Thanksgiving and Christmas back then, and it came and went, and I thought I had gotten letters saying we're interested in you, we're going to draft you, whatever. Well, I not only didn't get drafted, I wasn't chosen as a free agent. So came back to school, and Coach Schroyer said, "Hey, partner," I said, "I'm sorry that you didn't get picked, but I've got a proposition for you." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "I'm going back. I'm leaving here, and I'm going back with the football Cardinals under new coach Charlie Winter. Would you like me to see if I could get you a tryout?" I go, "Yeah, coach, that would be great because I don't have any other alternative." And so he said, "Okay, I'll do that." And so normally back then they sent a high-powered, what do you call it, staff member, general manager, coach. They sent they sent the ticket manager to sign me, and that was a tough trip for them, coming 90 miles down to Carbondale from St. Louis, and but so he took me out to dinner, and that was fine. I was hurting at that time. I had tonsillitis or something like that, so I couldn't really enjoy a good meal. But so he said, "Well, we'd like to sign you to a free agent contract." And I said, "Okay, what's that entail?" And he said, "Well, it'd be a $12,000 contract if you make the team." And I said, "What about? Is there a signing bonus?" He said, "Yes, $1,000." I said, "Is that all?" And I guess that was pretty bold of me to say that as a free agent, but I just decided to try it anyway. And he said, "Well, I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm not privy to making any more overtures than $1,000." And I said, "Well, I was afraid he was going to go back to St. Louis and never see him again." So I said, "I'll take it." So I got a $1,000 signing bonus and $12,000 if I made the team. So.
Do you remember what you got for dinner out of it? That maybe added to the value a little bit?
Well, I don't know. As I say, I was hurting a little bit, and the guy said when he called, he said, "I'm in Carbondale," and I said, "I'm not feeling very well. I've been in bed for a day," and he said, "Well," and I'm going, no. Again, I was afraid he was going to go back to St. Louis and not ever see him again. So I said, okay, I'll do it. Do whatever you want. So I met with him, and we signed the deal and got a check for $1,000. That's more money than I'd ever seen. So that's how it all started.
Yeah, maybe one of the best contracts ever written, going to the ticket manager.
Really? Yeah, I feel badly talking about him like that, but I didn't say his name, and I know he's not alive anymore. But
yeah.
So,
well, that's a meeting that takes place in Carbondale. I'm just curious. You've worked at SIU since you played. You've been back to Carbondale. All those sort of things. How does life in Carbondale and kind of the more recent times compare to what it was like when you were a college student in the 60s?
Well, it was pretty Spartan back then. Although we did have Thompson Point was fairly new at that point, and so it was moving into a dormitory that was pretty good. It beat the Dowdell Barracks that were on the site of Neely and Neely Hall at that area, where some of the team members stayed, and that they literally were barracks. I mean, it was a piece of work. So I was happy to be in Thompson Point, and as along with many of the other players. So I don't know. It was fun going back as athletic director. Didn't know. Had only been back a few times in the interim in the 19 years that I was away. But I was keeping in touch with it. Went back, I think, in the spring to do things for charity work. Worked with the my memory is fading me. Disabled kids with the Special Olympics. That's what I was thinking. And so I went back, and I stayed in contact with people, and of course the coaches and athletics stayed in contact with me because they wanted money every year. So it was a way to get back there and see and meet some of the coaches, and couldn't go to many games because it was just difficult to get there and back in one day and then be ready to play a game the next day. So it was not conducive.
Right. You would have played in McAndrew Stadium when it was a little newer. It was kind of a relic by the time that it was torn down in early part of the 2000s. What was McAndrew Stadium like when you were a player?
You said the word relic, and it was a relic back then. We had a very small locker room, and dressed there. Let's see. The SIU arena was being built at that time, and so we were the first football team to locker in McAndrew. I mean in the arena, and then we would walk up and have halftime at McAndrew. It wasn't big enough to hold a whole football team, that 100 players. So and it had a grass field, and it was pretty tough. I didn't. Someone just came to the door. Why did they do that? But it was pretty bad, especially when it got cold and wet. We got. I can remember the last game we played there in 1965. It was against. I think it might have been Evansville. I'm not certain about that. But it just poured like 2 or 3 days before that. And we didn't have any other place to practice, so we practiced on that field and just got it all muddy and gooky and footprints everywhere. And the next day, it froze. I mean, it had to be down to 10 degrees, 15 degrees. One of the coldest games I've ever played. And all the ruts and the footprints were hard as rocks then, and that was an awful game. I think we lost it 2-0. Our punter got blocked a punt in the end zone, I think, and that's how they got 2 points. So we so it was a bad experience, and then I witnessed the evolution of it with. Not personally, I mean, not physically, but going back for a game or two every once in a while, I would see the AstroTurf put in, and it was good. I was happy for them, and it's just like the AstroTurf at Busch Stadium that I played and practiced in every single day. Became hard as a rock, and anytime in the Midwest there, when you've got They kept saying, well, there's a 3/4 inch pad or inch pad or whatever under the turf. Well, that's all well and good when it's 100 degrees or 95 degrees. It's nice and soft. But then the extreme temperatures that you have in the Midwest, it would get down to 0 or whatever, and that pad would just be like rock hard. And so I knew it had to be bad for them because I knew how bad it was for us in St. Louis at the time. And we saw an evolution in St. Louis as well with Busch Stadium because we played on grass there for the first 5 years, and played. The infield was 50 yards or 55 yards of the football field, and it was just like when you went out there for pregame warm-up, it looked so nice, and by the time you finished, it was like you just practiced on or pre-gamed on a sand lot, and so it was awful. And that was AstroTurf was very new back then, and it was better than playing on the sand of the infield, but not much.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure it's bad enough getting tackled on that in normal conditions. Getting some turf burn, but then when it ices over, it's brutal.
Oh yeah, really was. Yeah. And the poor linemen had to put their hands down and on that turf, and I don't know how they didn't get frostbite on their hands, because we didn't have gloves back then like they do now. The only gloves you had were those workman canvas gloves that weren't very good and certainly weren't very warming either.
Right.
So there was a lot of evolution in the times that we played.
Right. Going into your professional career, you mentioned being undrafted in '66. Before you have the meeting with the ticket manager with the Cardinals and you get that invite to training camp, did you think your football career was over?
No, I really, after being in training camp for a couple of weeks, I thought, I can do this. I can do this. But then I was number 6 of 6 quarterbacks in training camp in 1966, my rookie year, and I'm looking at it realistically, thinking, I don't have a shot here. Charlie Johnson was the starting quarterback. Buddy Humphrey was an older guy. Backup Terry Nofzinger was a fairly young guy out of Utah State, and then we had three rookies. One of the rookies was a All-American from Iowa. Gary Snook was his name. Drafted 3rd or 4th, I think. Had a really nice contract, a couple $100,000 compared to my 12. And then there was another player who had been drafted as a quarterback out of Ripon College. His name was Jack Ankerson, and I'm thinking, well, they're going to give him the best shot because he'd been there before, and then had to go in for Vietnam things, and so I'm number 6. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll bide my time, do the best I can. Hopefully they'll cut me early enough that I can try out with another team someplace. And week, went by, and all of a sudden, Buddy Humphrey, they cut him. I don't know why, but and then let's see. Jack Ankerson, they made him a tight end. He'd gained a little bit of weight, and he had some talent, so they put him at tight end. And it's up to me and Gary Snook then. And who are they going to keep? The guy they invested $200,000 in, or the guy they invested $12,000? Well, their investment is in Gary, and so they're going to keep him. So I don't have a shot. I'm odd man out. I knew they were going to keep 3, and. So it's Charlie and Terry and Gary and me, and okay. So I'm still thinking I'm going to get a shot someplace else, but I'm still there, and I'm going, geez, what's going to happen here? It's going to be the end of training camp, and nobody's going to want to pick me up then. So Gary didn't take care of himself very well. He developed a boil on his knee and had some other injuries. And all of a sudden, I was number 3 quarterback, and Gary just wasn't ready to play. And I guess he felt he had it made. I don't know. He's passed away subsequently, so I've never had an opportunity to talk with him after all that. But they called me in and said. We're going to have to cut you, but we're going to bring you back on the taxi squad, and we're afraid that you're going to just abandon us and go someplace else. And I said, where am I going to go? And I said, sure, I'll do it. I want to learn under Charlie for sure. And so I signed a contract again. And I said, I'm not under contract now, and if I stay here and I get hurt, you're not liable to take care of me. Oh, we'll take care of you. And I'm thinking, the older guys say, don't trust management. And so I did, and it did work out. How did it work now? That was 66. So I made the team, and I was on the taxi squad, practice squad, and the 9th game of the year was in New York playing the Giants, and Charlie Johnson hurt his knee bad. I mean, he had to have surgery. So they put me up, and all of a sudden I'm a backup quarterback, and I'm tickled to be there. Believe me, wasn't anticipating playing in any games. We had a good start to that '66 season, and everybody was looking at playoffs and everything, and boy, we lost most of the rest of the games. and didn't make the playoffs. And so we're playing Cleveland in the last game of the year in 1966, one of those cold games again. And Terry Knopfsinger didn't do very well, and again we were playing the Cleveland Browns, and they had us. I don't know. They were at lead by 24, 26 points going into the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden they called on me, and I'm going, oh boy, I'm gonna score 28 points to win this game? No way. So I just tried to do the best I could, and we lost. I don't know, 28 to, I don't even know the score. Doesn't matter. But so there I was. And then in the off season, I worked hard. I thought I was still going to battle against Terry, but they traded Terry to Atlanta, and all of a sudden I was the backup quarterback. And I went into to Mr. Bidwell. That was Stormy Bidwell back then, and I said I'd like to sign a contract. I'm a free agent right now. This is in the off season. He said, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll wait till we get to training camp and we'll be fine." I said, "I don't know," and he said, "Trust me." And so I didn't have any alternative. So I wait till to get to training camp, and we practiced a few weeks. We had a 6-game training schedule back then, and so we're getting to the last week of regular training camp, which was like we practiced 3 or 4 weeks, and then so I go into Mr. Bidwell again and say I'd like to sign a contract, and he goes, "Oh well, wait till we get to St. Louis." Well, because we trained up in the Chicago area, and he said, "Wait till we get to St. Louis." He said, "Who knows? We may be negotiating a starting quarterback salary by then." And I about, I harumphed him and said, "No, okay, what? I don't." Again, no alternative. So I go up to my room, and my roommate is Charlie Johnson, and my head's down, and he'll walk in and he said, "What's the matter, roomie?" And I said, "Well, they won't talk contract with me." He said something about waiting to get to St. Louis, and Charlie said, "You don't read the paper?" I said, "No, I don't know. I don't have time to do that." And he said, "You're going to be the starting quarterback." I said, "What?" He said, "I've got an ROTC commitment to fulfill, and they're calling me in because Vietnam was going hot and heavy." And Charlie had an ROTC commitment from New Mexico State, where he went to school, and they were calling him in. He had to go into to do training for 6 weeks or whatever, and then they were going to. He had a chemistry background, so they were going to set him up with a lab and put him to work in the Baltimore area and that's how he got his PhD while in the service, and never had to go to fight, but that's how I got to be a starting quarterback. They told me that this was like on a Tuesday, and our first exhibition game was Saturday in the New Orleans area, and that's how I got to be a starting quarterback. And then when Charlie came back after a couple of years, he decided that he thought that I was going to be the heir apparent, so he talked the Cardinals into trading him, and they traded him to Houston, I think, and then finally Denver, or maybe Denver first. So that's how I got to start as a quarterback. And then I didn't think then Bill Bidwell, Stormy's younger brother, took over, and he didn't particularly like me, and so they always drafted a quarterback in the first 3 rounds every year, and I'm thinking I couldn't. Bill Bidwell was not a real talkative guy, and so it was difficult to have any kind of dialogue. But I knew he didn't like me, and so I'm thinking, oh, geez, I'm going to be gone. Every year I'm going to be gone. And but he kept paying me, albeit not commensurate with the other quarterbacks in the NFL. But again, we didn't have real good seasons until the '74 season when Coryell took over. So it was a real difficult start. And then year after year after year, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, all of a sudden I'm in my 18th year. And how I started was just unbelievable. And then I was unceremoniously let go by Jim Hannafin, and he said, I just don't think that you can back up. You would be happy in a backup role with Lomax was going to be the heir apparent. And I understood that. I didn't agree with it, but I understood it. And he said, I don't think you can back him up. I said, well, sounds like you've got your mind made up. And then we went. So the season's over, and I'm being let go. And Billy Bidwell said, well, we'll throw a luncheon for you. I said, a luncheon? After 18 stinking years, you're going to throw a luncheon for me? I said, no. Just let me go, and we'll handle it from there. So my wife Mary and I had a scheduled trip to Hawaii to play golf, and these were fun trips. We took them most every off season, usually in January right after, and so we're in Hawaii, and again, this is 18 years. I'm happy as can be, not expecting anything. Well, one morning out there, the phone rings like at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we had twins at that time, and they were getting close to teenage years, and so we're thinking, oh gosh, something's happened. Why is somebody calling us at 5 o'clock in the morning? And so my wife Mary answered the phone, and she goes, hello? Oh, hi, Joe. Hi, Joe. and she mouths the word to me, Joe Gibbs. And she said, yeah, he's here. And so we got on the phone, and Joe said, I'm looking for a backup for Joe Theismann. And he said, I thought of you. It's the same system, so there's no learning curve or anything like that. And he said, would you do it? I said, yeah, sure, I'd do it. Again, it's probably for $230,000, something like that back then. That's when, Namath got $600,000 back in '66 or '65, and so I'm still floundering at the $200,000 range. And but I'm thinking I'm probably not going to have to play much, and so sure, I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I said, you'll take care of me, don't worry about it. And that's how the last year came. And the kids, I guess, were teenagers by then, and sophomores in high school. And they kicked and screamed about leaving St. Louis and their friends. And we got to Washington and spent the better part of first semester and part of another for them. And then they screamed and hollered when we had to leave. And it was that was kind of interesting. They didn't want to go there, and then they didn't want to leave there. So. But that's just how teenagers are, and
that's right.
Yeah. We had a great career. There's no question about it, and we're happy to be retired. Certainly, being the AD at Southern was a real blessing, and fun. It was fun. I really enjoyed it, and we have some lifelong friends from our time there, and. Didn't know what to expect, but it was in the times that my eras in football, I wouldn't trade that for anything. I wouldn't want to. Would I want to play today? No, not really. Would I want to be AD today? No. I mean, how now? I never thought that the NCAA would go to paying players. And they did. I'm thinking, I mean, the presidents of the universities are the ones who make these decisions, along with the hierarchy of the NCAA. And I'm thinking, those guys will never do that. Well, they did, and I don't know how Southern's going to, if Southern could do anything about that. where are they going to get the money to pay?
Did you know that Southern Illinois University awards students $10 million annually in scholarships, has test optional admission, and in-state tuition for all U.S. residents? SIU offers hands-on, career-focused learning in every major, which are supported by internships and community service and the potential for study abroad and more. Southern Illinois has faculty who bring real-world experience to the classroom and the classroom into the real world. See what SIU can do for you at the next open house. Registration and info at siu.edu/open house. Exploring options. That's a Saluki.
I think early in your career, you're, a year out of Southern, and you're a starting quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah.
What level of fear do you have going from a college quarterback to being that young and being an NFL starting quarterback?
Oh, it was unbelievable. And another issue there was that the offensive line was older, and the team was older. So I'm looking at Ken Gray in the offensive line, Ernie McMillan. Some of the other guys, Irv Goody wasn't that old, but Ken and some of those guys were well into their 30s at that time, and they were the best offensive line in football, in my opinion. And so it was. I'd get in the huddle and I'd look up at these guys and I'm thinking, I'm wondering what they're thinking. This young whippersnapper, he's gonna call the play and he's gonna do this and he's gonna do that, and we had some success. And so it was after having it, I guess the guys said, well, I guess he might be all right. And so looking up at those guys with their scruffy beards and stuff, and their cigarette breath, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, what am I doing here? So it was, and in the locker rooms too, it was, I want to say about a third of the players smoked, and so it was. Even my mentor, Charlie Johnson, was a cigarette smoker, and we lockered right next to each other. And I didn't sit there very often because he always had a cigarette in his hand, and at halftime too, it was Jim Hannafin was a smoker, and we'd convene for a quarterback meeting, and he'd break out a cigarette and light it, and I'd walk away about 10 feet. He said, come on over here. And I said, no, I'm not smelling that smoke. I said, I need to catch my breath and get ready for the half. Oh, he called me all kinds of names and stuff. And that's back when they smoked on the sideline, too, and not players. Yeah. But Hannafin did.
I can't imagine guys lighting up in the locker room at halftime now.
Oh, well, I'm pretty sure they don't. I think that they probably. Well, I think that they don't. They may not. Players today control everything, so
yeah.
You don't have coaches like Lombardi and Shula and people like that who, when they said something, you said yes, sir. And a young player like me, I'm gonna do that too. I'm gonna whatever they said. I said, oh, yes, sir. Okay, yeah, you bet. One story about Don Coryell, where Don liked to throw the ball, and but we had an offensive line that was second to none at that point. We got sacked 5 or 6, 7 times one year. I think it was 75. It might have been, and so Don wanted to throw it all the time, but I had a knack of throwing the ball away if things didn't work out. And but I came to the sideline one time for there was a measurement, and I came over and Jim Hannafin and I are talking. He's got Harry Gilmer upstairs on the phone, and they're saying, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I said, okay. And Don sticks his face in our little huddle and says, throw it, just throw it. And I mean, it's like 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 or something. I throw it, and my eyes got big, and I looked at Hannafin, and Don left the huddle then, and Jim says, you know what to do. And so, of course, I did. I'm going to turn around, give it to the fullback or halfback, and run against the best offensive line in football. And I also thought, what would the linemen do to me if I got out there and said, we're going to throw it? And they would have probably beat me. Said, get out of here. We're not throwing it. And it's obviously the safest thing to do when you only have a yard or two to go. And those guys felt like they could blow a team off the line for 5 yards. So I think it was probably Deerdorf who said when I got in the huddle, we are going to run it, aren't we? And I said, yes, Dan.
Well, you would have played in 4 Pro Bowls. I think you would have been a Pro Bowler with O.J. Simpson. Is that right?
Well, against him.
Did you have any interaction with him?
I met him a few times. He was very nice. Nice to the wives, our wives. We would meet at events that happened during the week and those things. And he was cordial. But the only thing I can remember is the wives saying, geez, look at the size of his head. I'm going, jeez. Of all the things he could say, that's what they would say. Look how big his head is.
Oh, yeah. Well, after, a 19-year NFL career, 4 Pro Bowls, 35,000 yards, did you expect to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame at the end of all that?
Oh, I don't know if expectation is the right word. It's nice to think about that could be something that happens, but as you witness classes going into the Hall of Fame, you see that you almost have to have played in a Super Bowl to be considered. And I haven't paid much attention to it in the last, 10 years or so. But I know that's how it had been. And because pure statistics, I was number 3 behind Tarkington and Unitas back then. And I thought, well, that might have an opportunity. But then I didn't play in a Super Bowl. So if that's the criteria that they're looking for, I guess I have to come to the realization that it's not going to happen. So I just hope it happens. If it does happen, I hope it happens before I die. It's not going to do me any good posthumously.
Right. For what it's worth, I saw a fan vote the other day that was going around. 70% of the fans wanted you in. So
really?
There's some people that want to see it happen.
Oh wow, I hadn't seen that. Well, that's encouraging, but I'm not going to hang my hat on that. As I get older and battle cancer and heart disease, it's probably not going to happen in my lifetime. So, but that's okay. My memories are my teammates, and I have their birthdays on my calendar, and Big Dan was 71 Monday, and so I keep in touch with those guys. Johnny Rowland is 77 now, and so some of these guys are we're losing some guys too.
Right.
John Zook a month ago, I guess, and we're all getting diseases or whatever and having trouble. Like I had heart bypass a few years ago and suffered cancer all last year. So we know that we're in the twilight of our careers, but we have each other still. And I have a golf tournament in St. Louis every year for the developmentally disabled, and I look forward to that. We missed it this year because of coronavirus. Scheduled for August, but I don't know. I'll have to ask my doctors if they think it's right for me to travel.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I don't want
I hope
that
you can get that done.
Yeah, I do too. So that's the time that we all get together and tell stories that we've been telling every year for the last 30 and still laughing as hard as we did the first time.
Right. I did have a few questions for you about your time as the Southern Athletic Director.
Sure.
1989 to 1999 you served. Late in that era, you hired a guy named Bruce Weber, the basketball coach. What do you see in Coach Weber when you hired him?
Oh, I just liked his attitude. I liked it that he was a good speaker. I thought that he was a good motivator. He motivated me in the interview process, and I didn't have any marching orders as to who I should hire or what I should hire, but I still was concerned without saying what I want to say with these times. But he was the class of the people that we brought in, and we're still friends today. I still follow him. We talk once a quarter or so. They bought a house down here in Naples that they only come down a couple times a year, but we go out to lunch usually, and then I talk to him on the internet a bunch. I watch games that I can watch, just like it's tough watching Southern games too, but so I watch K-State games and that I can, and say something like right after the game, whoops, that one got away, and not expecting him to respond, just letting him know that I'm concerned, watching and rooting for him, and I mean he'll text me from the locker room, for crying out loud, because he texts right back. Tells me how he felt they won or how they lost or whatever, and so he's still a good friend, and he's loyal to me, and I'm thinking, no, I'm more loyal to you than you should be to me. But yeah, he really helped the Southern program. I'm happy about that.
You said he motivated you in that first meeting. How did he motivate you?
Well, just by his demeanor, how he felt that he was going to lead the team, and how he dealt with players. I didn't feel like he was condescending in looking toward working with players. Sometimes you get coaches who think they're holier than thou, and you just get a feel that they might be tougher on the players than need be. Not that as a player you don't need to be jumped on occasionally, but I like the fact that he didn't appear to use the curse words, and unlike some other people that I would talk to and I'd meet for the first time, and they'd use a bunch of curse words, and I'm thinking, how do you know I talk like that? You don't know that. Why are you talking to me like that? So that bothered me in some other people that I'd met through the years. Again, I don't want to name names or anything like that.
Right.
Get myself in trouble.
Right. Well, I'll wrap with this. There seem to be a lot of former Saluki athletes that end up coming back to the area in some capacity, kind of like you did. You have a kind of a dual legacy as both the quarterback of the football team and then the athletic director for a decade too. When you look back on both of those stints, what are you most proud of about your time at Southern?
Wow. Well, I came in when Title IX was resurfacing. It had been picked up with Ronald Reagan era, and so all of a sudden now it had been pushed under the rug, and all of a sudden it was out there again, and it was pretty obvious that it was not going to be pushed under again, and so I felt it was my duty to abide by it, and so when I first got there, I had a directive on my desk that said, you're going to get rid of wrestling, you're going to get rid of gymnastics, and wrestling and women's field hockey. And I'm thinking, oh man, and this was a directive. This wasn't just a suggestion, and it came from above. You're going to do this, and I'm going, holy cow. First of all, gymnastics in Bill Meade. Bill Meade was my counselor as far as what I was going to do with my academic career, and I'm thinking, oh no, I've got to cut that sport. And women's field hockey, I said, I can't cut a women's sport. We got to get more women's sports. And I was told, no, you got to do it. And of course, other people I got all kinds of nasty letters and from wrestlers and gymnasts, and I was in school with those guys, and both programs were doing really well back then, and still doing fairly well. But it was something that hierarchy said you got to do, and so that was something we did, and we weathered the storm, and I was proud of that. And then a few years later, we get this directive from the state of Illinois that you no longer can use state funds for athletics. Well, that was about half of our budget, and I'm thinking, okay, how are we going to make up that, and still carry on without dropping more sports? And it was we did it. I don't know how we did it, with mirrors, I guess. Talked about having more fundraising opportunities because we were going to the fans just too much, and they were tired of it, and so then it was. I thought, well, we need to get out and get more sponsorship, like from Anheuser-Busch. I was familiar with Anheuser-Busch when I was in St. Louis, and Denny Kortkamp, of course, was the distributor in Southern Illinois, and still is. We just got off the phone a few days ago talking about that. Couldn't believe that he was still running this distributorship there in Southern Illinois. But and I thought of that, and I thought of casinos. They were coming on board, but I was told again by the board, nope, you can't go to those people. We're not going to do that. We're a state institution. We're not going to be a part of alcohol and gambling. Well, I go, now what do I do? And I really don't remember how we did it, but we did, and we're fairly successful. And then, of course, with the hiring of Bruce, we had to pay Bruce more than we were paying some of the other people that we'd had in there. So it was just. It was a difficult thing, but we weathered the storm, and I guess I'm probably most proud of that. And I had our associate, Charlotte West, Dr. West, as looking over my shoulder, and people were telling me we had to get rid of Charlotte, we had to get rid of Nancy Bandy, and I'm going, how are we going to do that? Why are we going to do that? They're doing their jobs, and they're doing it well. And some of the old-timers were not happy with me that I didn't do their bidding. And so I'm equally proud of weathering that situation. And but they're still hanging in there. And lo and behold, they do have some beer sponsorship now, and they do have some casino sponsorship. And I'm going, oh, why couldn't you have done that back then? Might still
Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jim, it's always great to talk to you. It's good to hear you guys are staying safe down there in Florida, and really appreciate you taking an hour to chat with me.
Oh, no problem. Enjoyed it very much. I always look forward to talking with people from Southern, and it's just fond memories.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, stay healthy and shoot it well when you do get a chance to get out there on the golf